Before the events of A Song of Ice and Fire, House Dayne was renowned in the Seven Kingdoms. Figures such as Ser Dayne and Lady Ashara Dayne captured the hearts, souls, and minds of many across the land. The Sword of the Morning was known as one of the best fighters ever to walk the earth, while Lady Ashara stunned men to silence with her beauty. But by the time of A Song of Ice and Fire, those who remained of the Daynes were dwarfed by their predecessors, so much so that the family was rarely mentioned, but in reminiscence of the past. One of the yet living Daynes to appear in the narrative was Gerold Dayne. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Exploring Fiction. Known as Darkstar, Ser Gerold Dayne was followed by a brazen reputation. Though he talked mightily of himself and his deeds, he was secretly full of envy for his late cousin, Sir Arthur. Darkstar was hardly the ideal representative for House Dayne, but the once great family had stumbled far, leaving Ser Gerold as one of the only acting men to carry the name. He held not a candle to his forebears, and the shadow he cast faltered beneath the blazing light of his namesake's history. So, who exactly is Gerold Dayne, and why is he such an interesting character? Let's explore. Ser Gerold Dayne was born between 270 and 274 AC in Dorne, possibly in High Hermitage, where stood the cadet branch of House Dayne. Little is revealed of his upbringing, though he was notably once a lover to Princess Arianne Martell of Dorne. By the time of A Song of Ice and Fire, Ser Gerold was in his 20s, and many thought him quite handsome. He possessed deep, cruel purple eyes, a large hooked nose, high cheekbones, and a prominent jaw. His hair was stark silver, and fell down to the base of his neck. It was parted by a streak of black, the color of a midnight sky. Though Ser Gerold appeared pretty like his forebears, his temperament stood in blatant contrast to his looks. He was ruthless and dark, and deeply envious of Ser Arthur Dayne, his departed cousin. Though he does not wield Dawn itself, Ser Gerold possesses a longsword at his hip, with which he is formidable. Many noted him as one of the most dangerous men in all of Dorne. As he reached adulthood, he garnered the nickname Darkstar for his dour demeanor, and also inherited the title of Knight of High Hermitage, making him the face of his branch of House Dayne. Though he is absent from the first 3 volumes of the current narrative, Darkstar finally appears in A Feast for Crows. When the kingdom of Dorne sits mostly idle as war and strife run rampant above, Princess Arianne Martell decides to act. She has grown impatient and tired of her father Prince Doran's diplomatic and passive tactics, and also believes he secretly formed a plan to make his son Quentyn, Arianne's younger brother, the heir to Dorne instead of her. So, Arianne wishes to transport Princess Myrcella Baratheon, who sits as a ward at Sunspear, out of the capital city so she can be crowned and supported by Arianne, as is the custom of Dornish law. Arianne hopes to stake her claim in this way upon Dorne, as well as enact revenge on the Lannisters for the death of her uncle Oberyn. Among those recruited to aid her in smuggling away Myrcella is Darkstar, though Arianne notes him the least trustworthy of the bunch. As the company successfully reaches Shandystone, Arianne informs the others that she only recruited Darkstar for his reputation in a fight and for his claim to High Hermitage, though she now begins to suspect him even more due to his voiced skepticism of her plan. As the party reaches the Greenblood, they are ambushed by Areo Hota and his men. Hota orders for the group to surrender peacefully, and Darkstar astonishingly agrees, correctly sizing up the odds. However, Ser Eris Oakheart, Princess Myrcella's resident Kingsguard protector, charges the enemy force and is killed in the fighting by Areo Hota himself. During the chaos, Darkstar turns on Myrcella, drawing his sword and attempting to kill her. As he swings his sword down at the innocent girl, her horse rears, and the blade only cuts off her ear and slices across part of her face. While Hota and his men round up the dissenters, Ser Gerold escapes on horseback into the wild sands of Dorne. Hauled back to Sunspear, Myrcella has her wounds treated and is kept quite alive, while Arianne mulls over her failure. She wonders if a traitor was in her midst, and the most likely culprit is Darkstar. Though he does not appear in the flesh, Ser Gerold Dayne is the subject of some discussion in A Dance with Dragons. Transporting the skull of the Mountain, Ser Gregor Clegane, as a gift of recompense for the death of Prince Oberyn, Ser Balin Swan arrives at Sunspear and finds his Kingsguard colleague, Ser Eris Oakheart, gone. As instructed by Arianne, Princess Myrcella blames his death on Darkstar instead of Areo Hota, and Ser Balin swears to hunt the man down. Together with Obara Sand, he forges out into the sands of Dorne toward High Hermitage, intent on finding and bringing Ser Gerold Dayne to justice. When she hears of the news, Cersei Lannister believes Darkstar to be in league with her brother Tyrion, who she believes is the antithesis to her entire existence. Still, Darkstar himself remains out of sight and on the run, falsely blamed for the death of Ser Eris. Past members of House Dayne have been regarded quite highly by their contemporaries. Ashara Dayne caught the eyes of Eddard Stark and Barristan Selmy, among others, due to her beauty, and Ser Arthur Dayne is one of the most legendary warriors of all time. However, the current leader of House Dayne, Darkstar, pales in comparison to them. He is not the true leader of the Daynes. That title belongs to Edric Dayne of Starfall. But Edric is just a boy, squire to the Lightning Lord Beric Dondarrion, and is thus involved with the Brotherhood without banners. So, as Patriarch of the Daynes of High Hermitage, and the most prominent adult male in the lines of his family, for all intents and purposes, Ser Gerold is the utmost member of House Dayne. Darkstar possesses the adequate looks and skills to at least measure up to his forebears, but the man he is on the inside is what separates him, and not for the better. His very nickname, Darkstar, is an admonition of his more wretched tendencies, and Ser Gerold wraps himself in it like a blanket, but also shelters behind it like a shield. He knows that as his name is already associated with darkness, he needs not put on a facade of chivalry. He appears the antithesis of his cousin, the Sword of the Morning. As Sir Arthur was associated with light, Ser Gerold is accompanied by thoughts of the dark. Especially in Dorne, his physical characteristics are known by many, but they only emphasize the worst parts of his personality. Because he is handsome, and because he is a deadly warrior, it only makes his venomous attitude all the more dangerous. And what's more, he is notably envious of the skill, fame, and reputation of his cousin Sir Arthur Dayne. If he were to follow in Arthur's footsteps and strive after goodness and virtue, few would recognize him but as a poorer copy of his cousin. Instead, he indulges in becoming the opposite, and while it certainly makes him different, his last name still draws those comparisons anyway. By taking such a divergent path, Darkstar leads the Dayne name in a new direction during and after the rule of Robert Baratheon. Now, when people think of House Dayne, they first think of Sir Arthur, the gleaming Sword of the Morning, but then next of Ser Gerold, the poisonous, seductive Darkstar. In A Song of Ice and Fire, the name of House Dayne rings as a sad echo of something once great, now propped up by a darker, weaker man, driven only by selfish ambition. At least some must realize how far the family has fallen, and that Darkstar is a Dayne by name, but a poor example when compared to Sir Arthur and the others who have come before him. Starfall and High Hermitage were home to one of the proudest and noblest families in the Seven Kingdoms. House Dayne produced some of the greatest men and women Westeros had ever seen, but not everyone could live up to such a standard. While the Sword of the Morning only heightened the Dayne reputation across the realm, Darkstar, Ser Gerold Dayne, seemed to undermine it in all he did. Rising to become the head of High Hermitage, he reveled in vice and cunning. And since Robert's rebellion decimated the Daynes of Starfall, Ser Gerold only grew more prominent, even above the boy Edric Dayne, who was the new face of Starfall. Because of his temperament and actions, Darkstar reflected poorly on the Dayne name, turning something that just recently stood as a shining example of chivalry into that of a distant memory of greatness. Ser Gerold Dayne, Darkstar, is an echo of greater men. So, that's all for this video. Leave a comment with your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new here. I'd love to have you. Visit my website, russellawellsauthor.com, for exclusive fiction and more, and sign up for my mailing list for free, exclusive content. The links for both are in the description below. And, like always, I will see you next time.